Colors. They are the most important thing when creating videos or consuming them, in my opinion anyways. And the way you view or edit your colors completely transforms the narrative of what you're viewing or what you're trying to create. As someone who prides themselves on their colors and creating a unique look, my monitor experience has been incredibly frustrating since I became a content creator. I've had monitors from a bunch of brands, but most recently I've been using this 32-inch designer series monitor from BenQ. While it looks absolutely stunning and super sharp, and I love the size, it even comes with a MacBook mode and Apple RGB, which attempts to copy Apple's colors. There's still one major problem with it. Whenever I actually get the video onto my phone after editing, the colors are never 100% the same as they were on the monitor, which is why I finally decided to switch. This is the Apple Studio display, and yes, it's 2 years old, so maybe we'll consider this a 2 years later review to see how it has held up. But I truly believe this is the best monitor for content creators, especially if your primary device is an iPhone. So let's talk about what makes the Apple Studio display the incredible monitor it is, as I finally get rid of my designer series monitor. Let's start with the physical exterior features, which actually instantly improve your quality of life when using the Apple Studio display. The spatial audio speakers on this monitor are just absolutely incredible, and I don't know how else to put it. They sound so good, which was a major problem that I had in my old monitor. I found myself that I was actually switching to the speakers on my MacBook while it was closed because the sound that came from that was actually better than what was coming out of my BenQ monitor, which always blew my mind. And I always had to end up actually using my AirPod Maxes or any other kind of headphones to make sure that my sound was balanced for any video that I was editing. So this was a huge quality of life change for me when I was finally able to use the speakers from the monitor itself. Apple has totally destroyed the game when it comes to monitor speakers. So if you're looking for the monitor with the best speakers, in my opinion, this is it. It's absolutely incredible for consuming any kind of content or editing or anything like that. Next up, let's move on to the webcam, which has been a huge hindrance for me in past monitors, simply because they just haven't had one, which has forced me to rely on external webcam solutions whenever I have a Zoom meeting or anything like that for any business or personal related purposes. So for a long time, I've been relying on the Oppo C1, which is an external webcam, and it's great, but it's just annoying having to rely on an external device when it really should be built into the monitor. And that's why I kind of phased out the Oppo C1 and started taking a lot of my meetings on my iPad, just because it had the camera built in and I didn't have to set it up or anything like that. So it's great that the Apple Studio display has a built-in webcam. Now it's only 12 megapixels and it's not the most amazing webcam in the world, but having it integrated is a huge quality of life change for me and is a huge upgrade from having to rely on an external device. Also, center stage is built in, which is great for me because I like to move around a lot and use my hands when I'm talking during meetings. Finally, for the exterior, there are 3 USB-C ports and a Thunderbolt port for anyone looking for a one cable solution, which is what I've done. So I have a cable running from my MacBook Pro into the Apple Studio display's Thunderbolt port, and that powers my entire setup, which is awesome. The 3 USB-C ports are super useful. Most monitors that I've had in the past actually only had 1 USB-C port, which was kind of annoying, but they did have a few additional ports, which we'll get to a little bit down the road in this review, which I wish the Apple Studio display included. But other than that, the display is just stunning to look at from a piece perspective. If you look at it turned off, it just looks really good, and I love having it in the center of my desk setup. I feel like it really elevates the aesthetic and just makes the whole space look really nice. Okay, with all the exterior stuff out of the way, let's actually turn the monitor on and look at the screen and the beautiful display, which I mentioned is the #1 reason you would want to buy this if you're a content creator. The Apple Studio display boasts an incredible 27-inch 5K ultra sharp display. It's just simply one of the sharpest displays that I've ever had the pleasure of looking at, and you get that whole Apple liquid retina experience when looking at this monitor like you would whenever you take a look at your MacBook or an iPad, where the screens just simply look better than everything else you're used to viewing, and you can't really put into words why that is, but the Apple Studio Display is literally the sharpest display I've probably had the opportunity of ever taking a look at. It also has True Tone display, which means that it automatically adjusts the white balance of the screen and the colors to basically match your environment and make sure that you're getting the most realistic color experience possible. One of the things that really bothered me about my old monitors whenever I was filming videos and pointing my key light at them is that it was painfully obvious that there was a glare or a reflection on the screen because of the key light. Thankfully, the Apple Studio Display actually has an anti-reflective coating built onto the display and into the screen, making it way less reflective than other monitors. So now when I point my key light at it, you're really seeing the brightness of the display and the details of what's on the screen rather than just the reflection of my key light, which is awesome for someone who films a lot in their studio and in their desk setup area. Now, my favorite part, as I mentioned, are the colors. It has 1 billion colors, offers P3 wide color with 14.7 million pixels, which is just awesome. The great thing about Apple products is that they work really well together, which is another reason you'd want to consider the Apple Studio Display if your iPhone is your main mobile device. And now I save a bunch of time going from one screen to the other, especially when I airdrop my videos whenever I'm done editing them from Final Cut Pro on my MacBook onto my iPhone. The colors look exactly the same, which was a huge issue that I had in the past. I had to keep transferring from one device back and forth, and it usually taking a few revisions until I was happy with the colors. Now I can generally just post without having to even review it because I'm quite confident that the colors on the iPhone are going to be accurate to what I'm seeing on the Apple Studio Display. So just from a time management perspective and not having to go back and forth and dealing with the disappointment of the colors looking different on your phone, sometimes better, sometimes worse, and I know a lot of people are used to that, is just a huge upgrade. I don't have to go back and forth anymore, and I really consider that to be an incredible reason for switching to this monitor. Apple has stated that this monitor comes color calibrated. So if you want an out-of-the-box experience where you don't touch anything, this is the monitor for you. You literally don't have to do anything. It comes out of the box perfect, and the colors work as they should. There's also some fun stuff built into the monitor like Siri, which I personally think is an awesome touch because the monitor is actually powered by an A13 Bionic chip, which is literally used to power an iPhone. So you're able to send text, set reminders, send emails, listen to your text, which are a bunch of things that I actually do using Siri all the time. So in terms of productivity, it does really up your game if you're someone who uses Siri to do a lot of tasks, because now you can just use your voice to take care of that while working on your monitor or while typing away. So it lets you do more things at once if that's something that you're into. Now let's talk about the negatives, because there are definitely some negatives. This monitor is not perfect and it's not for everyone. And the first negative I want to talk about is the cost. It's been out for 2 years and the cost has not changed whatsoever. In Canada, it still costs $2,000, and that's without any of the upgrades. So you're able to upgrade the glass if you want to that nano texture stuff, and you're able to get an additional stand, which we'll get to in a second, for an additional cost. But the base price of this monitor in Canada, as of today, as of the making of this video, is $2,000, and that is a bitter pill to swallow. But if that's something you're able to overcome, then this monitor, I would say, is definitely worth the price. All right, the next con is actually the screen size, and that may come as a surprise because a lot of people think that 27 inches is the sweet spot for a screen size, and it's really good. Don't get me wrong, the screen is plenty big, but if you're coming from a larger monitor like I was, so I got used to my 32-inch BenQ monitor, it does seem kind of small, which was initially disappointing. The screen just looks smaller in my setup overall, and I had less real estate. However, I will say I got over that really quick when I realized how much sharper this monitor was and how much more color accurate it was. So those things do kind of make up for the screen size, but I will say it's definitely an adjustment if you're coming from a bigger screen. The next con, which really bothers me, is the lack of ports on this, which I mentioned at the beginning of this video. There are 3 USB-C ports and 1 Thunderbolt port. While having the extra USB-C ports is awesome because most monitors only have 1 based on my experience, but not having actual USB ports and HDMI ports in the monitor, especially at this price, are a huge hindrance. I can't use a ton of third-party accessories because not all of them use USB-C, and so then I have to get adapters and things like that, which is super annoying. And because of that, I haven't been able to use my Halo light bar, and also because of the placement of the webcam and not having any additional real estate above or below the webcam, I can't use the light bar for that reason either. So for now, I'm choosing to continue without the light bar. Maybe I'll bring it back and cover up the webcam when I'm not using Zoom meetings, but for now I've chosen to survive without it. And finally, the biggest con for me is that you can't raise the height of the monitor, which is just absolutely ridiculous to me because it does not come with that tilting raising stand out of the box. The original stand only lets you tilt the screen up and down. So if you want to be able to raise your monitor, you actually have to purchase an additional stand, and it's not cheap, and let's just leave it at that. Luckily for me, I have a standing desk and I can adjust the height of my chair. So I've done that to sort of calibrate for the height that I want the monitor at, but not being able to raise your monitor out of the box is one of the most Apple things I've ever seen them do. But yeah, that's my review of the Apple Studio Display 2 years later. Now, this monitor has a bunch of quirks and it's not for everybody, but I still think that if you're a content creator or someone who spends a lot of time looking at their monitor and quality matters to you, this is still the best monitor for you. Trust me, the sharpness experience and the color experience of this monitor are completely unmatched. I was truly blown away the first time I was able to take a look at it, especially if you use an iPhone or an iPad as your primary device for posting. Not having to confirm that the colors are accurate are a huge lifesaver. But yeah, that's my opinion on the Apple Studio Display. That's it for this video. I'll see y'all in the next one, and until then, keep creating.